after our goldfish, probably the first thing a lot of people would be thinking when doing this goldfish is, how am I going to get this metallic effect? Luckily, you don't need any metallic paints. We are going to tackle this this shine with contrast and working our colors in carefully. The really fun thing about this is that, again, we are dealing with a limited color scheme. So it's going to be a great subject to explore the different variations you can get on one color, which is kind of like an orange, like a golden orange, and how we're going to manipulate it into lighter and darker colors, and how we're going to create that kind of that shiny effect on it. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get the shape down. We're going to talk about it, and we are going to be using two techniques. We are going to be using wet on dry, which means just your watercolors applied to the paper, and then we're going to use wet on wet, which is we're going to wet the paper and we're going to apply wet paint and work with that. And if you're doing that for the first time, there is oh, there's still background noise. Okay. So we're going to do those two things, and I'm going to guide you through and do some reminders of how it works. So basically, the colors we're going to be working with today are going to be, we're going to be working with kind of, you know, this range. We're working with orange, golds, yellows, whatever you have. Even if you just have a yellow and an orange, that's going to be fine. We are going to be working in a little bit of blues, and we're going to be working in a little bit of greens just to cool off some of the areas to give them a more muted tone. And we might use a little bit of black, just a little bit for the eye. And this is an easy subject to draw. It's going to be easy to shape and form. The colors are easy. The one thing you want to keep in mind is we just want to be very careful around the areas that we want to protect, which are the areas that have a lot of light, because that's what's going to give you the metallic effect. So we're going to start. I'm going to start with, as someone requested, I'm going to kind of show you the brushes before I start. And I am actually, this one, I mean, this one is huge. Let's see, maybe this one. Okay, this is a size 12, which for you, maybe you would want a 6 because you're working on a much smaller surface than I am. Also, the other thing to remember is that I am going to be working a little bit darker in the beginning, especially when I'm trying to place my subject. Make sure that it's only dark enough to where you can see it. It doesn't, because you're just establishing the shape and you're layering it. For me, I have to go darker to make sure that everybody else looking can see it. So basically the range we want to work with today, we've got the large, we've got the medium, and this one is a size 6. And we're going to use a fine brush, which would be like a 0 or a 1 or whatever you can find. We're mostly going to be working with the rounded brushes today versus that's a flat brush, the one that looks like it's pinched. We're not going to be using that much. So we're going to use the ones that look like a mop that hold a lot of water. So I am going to start putting down the shape of the fish, and we want to think of it in 3 parts. We've got the body, and then we have the tail, and then we have the fins. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the body, and that's going to be a separate process than the tail and the fins, because that's when we're going to use the wet on wet, even just to start the painting. So we can see the shape of the fish. We almost you know, we have a curve at the top, a curve at the bottom, and we can just keep it really basic in the beginning. So I am going to, Justin, we can go to the easel, please. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a color over here that's kind of an orangey brown. I'm going to take a little bit of orange over here, and I'm going to take a little bit of brown. And that's kind of going to be my, add a little bit of water. It's going to be the equivalent of my pencil. I've got my test paper up here. Just test the color. So this is one of the colors you see as being one of the darker colors in the fish. So I want to water it down a little bit more. I'm just going to add water in here. And I want it to be light enough to where I can see it, but it's not going to interfere much in the shape. So what I'm going to do is I am going to work on the body of the fish. So again, the format in this one doesn't really matter that much. I have mine vertical because I really want to elongate some of the lower fins, but it kind of can go either way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put down the top arch. I can fix the shape later, and it's light enough to where I can do it. And then I'm going to put the bottom. Now the bottom over here seems to have a little bit more roundness, and I'm going to establish that. And the very next thing I'm going to do is I want to protect those areas that are very light, like the part at the bottom of the fish over here. There's some in here, and there's some over here. So what I want to do, so I don't forget about these, and this is kind of a technique you can use when you're trying to create brightness in a painting. I'm going to take just a plain yellow, any yellow that you have, and I'm just going to make kind of a watered down yellow. Okay, and I am going to use that to paint in my very light colors. I'm going to move to a bigger brush so I can work a little bit faster and clear over here. So again, it has to be transparent, it has to be light, but what this is going to do, it's going to give you a lot of brightness, and that's where you want it because that's a very shiny area. I also have that here. I have some here, a little bit here. So these will be your areas that we are going to try to protect throughout the painting, and they will be the basis for creating that shiny effect. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the tail and the fins. And what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to use wet on wet, which means you're going to take some water. We're going to start with the tail, and we want to wet the area. Now, the fun thing about using wet on wet for this subject in particular is that you notice the fins and the tail have a slightly different feel than the body. The body feels more solid, and the fin and the tails are more translucent. You know, that you can almost like feel them moving in the water. So they're going to have a lot more of a feathery kind of liquid effect. And when you use wet paint on wet paper, it's kind of going to go into different places, and you get a pretty cool surprise. So again, the precision with the water, it does not have to be that precise. Just make sure that you don't put it somewhere where you absolutely do not want it. So I'm just going to have water over here, and I am going to go to my colors, and I want to mix a nice golden orange. So I'm going to take this yellow and take a little bit of orange. Now you can see I want this color to be kind of deep. You see, that's the color that I have. It's this one. And what I'm going to do is I am going to, you have to make sure that you're looking at the picture. Always start a little bit before where you want. So I'm going to start a little bit with the body. Probably need a little bit more. And you see, it's going to start bleeding in. See that cool effect that's happening over here? it's going to start bleeding in that area. So make sure that you don't guess this, and make sure that you look at your fish. You kind of just let it trail. Okay, so again, we're starting with the base, so we don't have to do much more than that. Let's do the same with the fins. I'm going to start with the top fin, and I'm going to wet it. Of course, I have a little bit of color here, which doesn't hurt. So I have that area wetted, and I'm going to go make again some of that golden color. It just depends on what you have in your palette. When it looks like a nice, rich golden color with a touch of orange, it's almost like the color of a light orange is what, like an actual orange fruit. And I am going to, so this one I'm going to treat it a little bit differently because I can clearly see some lines here. But see, even that, I mean, is really just working out nicely. It's not giving me too much sharpness with those lines. They are there, but they're not sharp or extremely defined. I'm going to just kind of pull this through a little bit. I always, like I was mentioning earlier, I always like to work a little bit before or past an area. It just makes things connect a little bit better. So I'm going to go to the bottom fins, and now we have enough to where we can start measuring, and we can see that one of them, the one on the left, starts a little bit before the top fin. It's going to be over here. So I'm going to put my water. And again, I'm going to, and this is also a great way to kind of start. It gives you a lot of shape, form. It gives you some playful, unexpected lines, but it also is light enough to where you're not that committed to it. So I'm just putting in, and again, I'm watching my fish. I'm going to sneak this in a little bit here. I'm going to go to a slightly smaller brush. Again, I'm going to put my water. And I noticed that this one falls a little bit lower, so I'm going to extend my water. I'm going to go back to my color. If you need more, you can get more. And remember, there's absolutely no reason why the color should be exactly the same every time, as long as it's within the same family. Okay. So now I have most of the components. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the eye so that I can protect that area and not go over it with a big wash of orange. So I'm going to take a thin brush. So this is a small brush. This is a 0. And I am going to just make like, I don't want the color to stand out too much. So I'm going to kind of use a color that would be one of the darker colors. I'm going to take a little bit of orange with a little bit of brown. Try this color out. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I am going to mark where the eye is. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than it actually is, just in case I need to move it. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to go around the fish. There's a lot of nice curves, ins and outs that are there. So we're going to start doing that so we can be done with the form. And for that, I'm going to use kind of an orange color. Again, I'm going to go back to a medium brush. So I'm just going to use like an orange over here. And I'm going to start up here because there's a lot of shape here. You see it almost like it stands up here and then it goes down a little bit. And then you get kind of, there's a little ridge here. And then there's a little bit of kind of straightness. Notice this is where the mouth is. And then I'm gonna go real easy here. Okay. I'm gonna go in through here. I'm gonna kind of just work around this lightly. I'm gonna do this shape over here. I'm gonna go back to the top. And I'm gonna have it flow with the fish. So now I have everything that I need right there. Okay, so my next step is going to be defining the really dark areas. The dark areas are doing two things. They are defining the different parts, like this is kind of where the head ends and you have that sharp curve. Also over here where the fins kind of start, over back here. And then you have the dark that is also defining the scales, and the dark against the light colors over here is what's going to give it that contrast and make your fish look shiny. So what I'm going to do is we are going to paint in our fish with a golden orange color. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter than the one I just used, but I want to protect my light areas. So before I do that, I am just, with a thin brush, I'm just going to mark them out. So I'm going to take some brown with a little bit of orange. And I am going to just mark out these areas just really lightly. They are going to go in with the rest of the scales, so should not be a problem. But this way, when I start doing washes, I'm going to remember that these are areas that I just need to be mindful of. I have this one over here. And you can almost see that there's some darkness around them. Mark those. And then the ones that are over here. See, I feel that the eye should be lower, but I think I'm going to leave it. And I'm just kind of marking off those areas over here. There's maybe a couple just that sneak in here. If you're seeing any light areas, and you know, some of us might be picking up more than others, just kind of just outline them lightly. And that way you will remember to just work around them. Okay, so now I'm ready for my golden orange color. So I want this one to have a little bit more brightness than the other colors that I started. So I'm going to, so this one's gonna have more yellow than it is orange. So I'm gonna have my gold over here. I'm actually gonna take some of that orange. And I'm gonna start putting in this color, and I'm gonna avoid putting it in the areas that I just marked out. And again, at this point, now I'm working with, see how I'm going around the marked areas. At this point, I'm not doing wet on wet because I am wanting a little bit more precision. I'm gonna switch to a bigger brush so I can cover more ground with you. And again, you know, mixing the exact right color takes practice. The best thing I can tell you is trust your eye. If it feels too dull, needs more brightness, you're going to add a little bit more yellow. Again, I'm working and I am avoiding the areas that I marked out. Okay, so this one here. And again, if you have to remix, just make sure that your brush does not get dry. If it starts making noise, it's thirsty, and you want to add more color. So I'm just going around those areas that I marked. And again, keep your brush loaded so you don't get any kind of scratchy looking areas. Again, I need to mix a little bit more. And you know, if you have more than one yellow, try different ones and see what happens. What I'm going to do here, just so that it has a nice flow, I'm just going to kind of sweep some of this in to the tail. Okay, while I have this color, I'm just going to sneak it in where I'm seeing it. And now notice how light, you know, every brush stroke that you do, just think of it as almost like a dance movement. You know, you want it to be soft and curvy, you know, just make sure that you go with that motion, you know, just get a little playful with it. You know, let your hand kind of sweep. Okay, so now we have everything covered, and I would like to take a look at what everyone's doing if you want. See? Anyone want to show me?
Hi everyone, I replaced Justin.
Oh.
He was having a problem with muting. I'm also having a problem with unmuting. So if you need to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. So everyone, if you want to unmute yourselves, if you want to show me what you're doing. Okay. Very nice.
You're the I have Mitzi. Noelle?
Okay, Andre, that looks fantastic. The colors are really good.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
Okay, thank you. How do you do the scales?
We're going to do that next.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Noelle, that looks good. Looks good. Phyllis, you want to show me? So yeah, if you want to talk to me, just unmute yourself for now. Okay, looks good, Phyllis. Susanna, you want to show me? Okay. Okay. Ooh, very nice. Great. Great. Jerry, you gonna show me?
No.
No. Sharon, that looks good. Wait, Shannon thinking also. Ooh, very nice. Kina?
Oh, not yet. Not yet.
The birthday girl. She's not focused today. It's her birthday.
Hi, birthday girl. Hi, birthday girl.
Okay. Lucia? That's actually so nice. So, okay, so if you can mute yourselves and let me just kind of draw your attention to one thing. Just make sure that your blocked out areas in the fish have that light yellow coating, because that's what's going to give them a lot of brightness. So now we are going to go to starting to define. And so where we stop today, I think you will pretty much have, you know, a finished fish. But this is one painting project that I think you can really go on for a much longer time. When painting something like scales or fur or something like a pineapple that has repetitive shapes or textures, you kind of have to pick and choose which ones you're going to do. Because typically if you do all of them with the same intensity, it's going to flatten the work a little bit, because you're actually not seeing all of them equally. You're not seeing them, well, first of all, they're not all the same size and shape. And second of all, we're not seeing all of them with the same intensity. We are seeing the ones that are on the rounded part of the fish, which is kind of at its belly. Those are a little bit closer up. You know, they point out a little bit more, so they look a little bit clearer. The areas where you have contrast, you're seeing them a little bit clearer. So the best thing is to start with the ones that look the clearest to you, and the ones that look like they have slightly faded edges, you want to make sure that you don't give them too much definition. But again, when we stop, and if you want to continue with this, you can just revisit some of the scales, bring them out. But we're kind of going to do the abbreviated version where it looks like you have all of them, but you don't. So we're going to create a new color now, and that's going to be our cool and muted color. It's still going to be an orange or a golden color, but it's going to have a cool quality to it, and it's going to go into the areas that are darker and the areas that are going to define the scales a little bit. So you can go either way. You're going to have to try it and see what you like better or what looks more natural to you. You can either add green, it's going to be just a touch, or you can add blue. Again, orange and blue are kind of colors that work well together, mixing them if you just do the right amount. Like last time, or the time before, when we did the watercolor and we did the sky, and we wanted to get kind of a natural blue, we put a touch of orange in with the blue, and it just muted it just a little bit. So the little bit of blue in the orange is going to mute it just a little bit and give it that coolness. So I'm going to try both. So I'm going to create a golden orange. And again, I'm using a medium or a medium to small brush. So I'm going to mix up some golden orange. I'm going to take a little bit of blue and, okay, I think it needs a little bit more. It's not changing it that much, but it's better to work slowly. Okay, now we're talking. So see, I'm getting this brownish color, which is actually just a blued up orange. So I'm going to start taking some of that color, and just to show it to you clearly, that's kind of what I got. Okay, now if you want it to be a little bit more blue, or a little bit later, you can take some of it and add a little bit more blue in one area, and so you can have a little bit of variation with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting this in the really dark areas that I'm seeing. So I'm going to go a little bit around the eye. I just need to make this color a little bit darker.
I don't see you, Noelle. This is Noelle's iPhone.
Yeah, Noelle, oh, there we go. Your iPhone went out for a little bit, but now it's back.
Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna go a little bit around the eye. And remember, absolutely nothing in your painting has to have a continuous steady line. It doesn't. So if it's broken up, that is totally fine. I'm gonna go right underneath over here. I'm seeing some in here. I am seeing a little bit here. I'm seeing wherever you're seeing kind of that dark color. Quite a bit of it over here. Okay, and now I'm going to start going into some of the scales. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be filling in some of the area. Whoa, I almost lost my easel. Just a second. Okay. So I'm putting in kind of so what I'm doing is I'm leaving a space between them, and that's going to give that contrast. Okay, so what you're seeing now is you're going to start seeing a little bit more definition. And what's really working for us is that we've got, you know, color underneath this. So you're not just working on white paper. So the colors are still, they're mixing in, you're getting better colors. So what I want to do next is I want to, let's do the ones that are kind of a little bit on the top. And you can almost see these kind of almost like moving in a line. And almost like a dotted line, and it kind of fades. There's just some really fun shapes. You know, just make sure that you don't ignore the photo reference and just keep going, because you want to make sure that you are following the guidelines that you have in there. I'm going to go a little bit into this light area.
Can we get a little closer to where you're putting in the brown dots? Can I see or not?
Let's see. Okay, is that closer? Okay, so at one point, these are starting to look a little bit more blue for some of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the reverse of what I just did, and I am going to use blue, and I'm going to put a little bit of orange to it because I want the color to be more blue than orange, but still connect to it. So, and especially in this area, you're seeing a lot of coolness of color. So I'm going to take the blue. And then I'm going to take some of the orange and golden. Try that. It's too dark and it's too orange. So I'm going to start it over. And take blue. Just put a touch of orange. Again, that was 2. I'm just trying to show you what, because now I got closer. Okay, so I'm going to start with the blue. I'm going to put some blue. I got a little dirtied. I'm going to put some blue. And I'm going to take just a touch of orange. Okay, I think I like this better. Okay, so what I'm getting is I'm getting kind of a, show you what I'm getting over here. So it's getting a little bit more blue to it. I think I still want it to be a little bit more blue. I'm just testing the colors. Again, what I'm doing is blue with a touch of orange. And you don't want this color to be too dark. So if it turned out dark, just add a little bit of water to it. So this is kind of the color that you want. And you can immediately see how it's creating contrast with those bright oranges. And you can start seeing how the fish is starting to look shiny. Now again, if you want to be adventurous and you want to go even bluer, I think that would be kind of fun. Again, I'm putting it in the areas where I'm seeing it being a little bit more blue tinted. And almost here, you're almost seeing like a clear blue. So I'm just gonna kind of exaggerate that a little bit. And I'm going to just put a little bit more of a blue color. Turned out a little bit dark. I'm just gonna pick it up with my paper towel. Okay, I think that's just enough. Mix that a little bit over here. So what I'm going to do before I go any further is I'm going to mark that eye, and I am actually going to use a black. So we're doing this towards the end because once you work with black, your water is going to get dirtied. I do have 2 containers, and notice that the black part is not quite, it's a little bit just off the middle, and that way it'll look a little bit more natural. And I'm just going to water that just a little bit and use that dark color just here at the top. Okay, now I'm gonna take a quick look and see if there's anywhere else that I'm really seeing that really dark color. And I would say maybe the only 2 areas I would see maybe a little bit over here, but I'm gonna water that just a little bit so it's not as dark as the eyeball when I see a little bit over here. So I'm gonna go in here, and then I see a little bit over here. So again, I'm using the black, but I just watered it down a little bit, or if you have any oranges left, you can put that in. And you just want to be careful where you use that because you don't want the fish to start looking too sharp. Okay, so I'm going to go back to working a little bit on the tail and the fins. And I am going to use more yellow than orange. It's going to be bright. Still going to have a little bit of orange, but, and again, you have to just mix those colors until you get them right. Clear out the space over here. Again, I'm taking yellow. And I'm going to start sweeping through. You can see. And then I'm just going to go with some really soft lines. So what this is doing over here, I already have orange in there, but this is giving it just a little bit more intensity because, you know, the color of the goldfish is really sharp. It's like glowing, and that's, you know, a big part of their appeal. So okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so so what I'm going to do is I am going to add just a little bit more yellow to that and create some brightness, and I am going to just sweep that in to the tail and just let it, you know, just let it kind of go, let it drip, have fun with it. And at this point, it becomes really fun to work with because you already have a lot of color down there. You have a lot of shape. So I'm going to creep this in a little bit. And I'm just almost just doing like, just kind of like these little, just swirly lines. And I'm going to start putting in that gold wherever I'm seeing it. So the more repeats you do of the process over here with putting in kind of that brownish color that was basically orange with a touch of blue, and then your blue with a touch of orange, and then going into the golds, the more you repeat this, the more definition you're going to get on that kind of that shiny texture. So again, we're doing the abbreviated version of it, because that's not something that you can do in an hour, not really. Okay, we're gonna go to the top. Again, if you run out of color, well, again, I like to go in a little bit deeper. I'm just letting these lines kind of, and you know, don't use your initial space that you put for the fin to stop you. I mean, you know, you're using it as a guide, so you know, feel free to go past it, and that will just give it so much more movement. You know, even just let them go in a direction that you don't see in the picture. Give it its own personality. And see now I put this color over here, and it's really bringing out that blue that I had put earlier. I'm gonna just sneak a little bit of it in here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, because we just have 10 more minutes, is I am gonna add a little bit of red to an orange. And there are certain areas that seem to have a deep intensity of that orange. So I'm going to take a little bit of red with some orange. So see, I have a really deep color. I'm gonna move out a little bit so you can see. Okay, so I'm testing out my color here. So again, we're looking for a red orange. You don't want it to be too thick, and I'm just gonna start sneaking it into some areas. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take just water and kind of just pull it through. And you can immediately see that it is just setting off all the colors. Again, orange and red. You want it to be more of an orange than it is a red, but it has to have that intensity. I am going to put it where I'm seeing it. Up here. Now for over here, I'm going to take some of it. I'm going to put it through, and I'm just going to take some water and pull them. See, so they still look like they are part of the entire fish, but they're not that strong. So again, you know, this is an accent color. We want to be careful where we put it. I can see it over here getting quite deep. You can see it here. Again, if it seems to be too heavy or marks a little bit more than you want it to, then you can add a little bit of water. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, and I'm just going to use it over here and just give it a little bit of a wash. And it's almost like the front of it has a little bit of pink, so I am going to make a pink. And I'm just going to see if there's anywhere that I can add that. That would not be hard to add, you know, anywhere. Maybe see a little bit of it over here. I'm just going to soften it a little bit. Okay. I think that this needs a little bit of attention. I'm going to go a little bit darker. I'm going to go back to my muted oranges. Again, I think this is really worth going back and visiting and just adding more texturing to it. Well, at this point, I'm just kind of using the colors on my palette where I'm seeing them. A little bit creeping into the eye. Yeah, I'm going to take just a little bit of blue and I'm just going to sneak it into the eye. It just looks like it's just staring at me a little too much. So that will soften it. Okay, and also gave it just a little bit more dimension. So now I am taking my thin brush and I'm just going with some detailing. Again, our lesson is almost finished, but I would not say that the fish is finished. I mean, you know, also the more you look, the more values you're going to see. Okay, and I am really getting into this and it's hard to stop. Especially this area over here, if you start just giving it a little bit more detail, it is not going to disappoint. Just remember that initial light yellow that we put, you don't want to seal that off completely, because that's how it's going to give that metallic effect, and you can kind of start seeing some of it coming through. Okay, so that's what we have for today. I'm gonna take your questions, and I have to like end it right at 2 because I have to rush to my dentist appointment all the way in Sugar Land. So everybody unmute yourself and
Is that it? Prim?
give you a closer view of.
Is Kina gonna show?
No, will not.
Oh, you have.
Is that, who's that? Is that yours?
Cute.
Well,
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Oh, where's everybody? I can't see anybody.
we're all here. Can you hear us?
I can only see. Huh, that's weird.
Do you have it on gallery view?
I do,
That's strange.
but I am only seeing my mom and Phyllis for some reason.
I hold up the.
Oh, look at the Jerry's. Wow.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh, come on. It's so bad. It looks like a horse
Oh,
Okay.
my
doesn't.
God. Of course not.
or a guinea pig.
It's pretty. I like it.
Thanks. Let's see. Oh, nice. Oh my gosh. That's beautiful, Phyllis. I'm ashamed of what I did today.
Yeah, like,
I'm always
Let's see everybody's. Where are they? I can't see anything. Noelle, hold it up really well. Let's see it. Oh, wow.
Kina's is really good. This is
Okay,
mine.
Terrible time putting the eye in the wrong place, in the right place. I don't know.
Oh, Shadlin, that's beautiful. That looks great.
Thank you.
that's not.
Oh, wow. Gosh, these are impressive.
What about Susanna?
Wow, that's good.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't know, for some reason, like I can see some of you and some of you I can't. I don't know, something funky is going on. I'm not sure.
It's okay if you don't see me. I'm happy with that.
Well, good luck with the dentist.
Okay. Noelle, can I see yours?
Oops.
Oh, really nice. I would have the fins and the tail look a little bit too restricted. Just
Okay.
build your confidence and just let those lines, wet them again, put a little bit of water and let the color just kind of streak through. Don't be afraid to do that.
Okay.
All right. Phyllis? Beautiful. I like the blues on them. So what do you think of the blue with the orange and the blue? Were you able to get some headway with that?
It's like $3.
Did it make sense? Did it
The
give you
green
the
made more
contrast that
sense.
you needed?
But yours was nicer before.
Kina, are you going to show me?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Show her.
Sorry, no, it's okay.
I'll show you later when it's done.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, Jerry, I haven't seen yours, Mom.
Oh,
Yours is great.
Oh, wow.
At first, and that turns out really nice.
That's really nice, Mom. Very
Wow.
dramatic.
yeah, well, you know me.
Yeah. And Susanna, I don't think I saw yours. Oh, beautiful.
Wow.
And Edie? No? Okay. Who else? Lucia, did you show us?
No.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Wait, I can't see it. Hold it. Hold it.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well, the
beautiful.
eye is fantastic.
And you knew where to
I
put
know
the eye.
she's going to take this several levels. Sharon, do you want to show me?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, beautiful, Sharon. That looks great.
Thank you.
So, so just realize that's balancing, balancing these colors. You know, it takes practice. I didn't just mix orange and blue today to get these colors that I did. It takes a lot of practice. There is no one formula. Every time you paint, every time you draw, you are getting better. Every time you go past your comfort zone, you're gonna get better. What I do here is I'm trying to show you my process with painting and how I can look at something and try to decide for myself, what am I seeing? What shapes am I seeing? What's darker? What's lighter? So I'm giving you a general idea. The rest is all going to be yours because our visions are individual and things you might pick up are going to be different than someone else. You're going to see more blue. You're going to see more purple. So, you know, just work with it. Don't get frustrated. Don't get discouraged. It takes many, many, many years and a lot of practice to get things right. I think when we do this kind of practice, when we're older, the process is actually faster because the frame of reference is so huge. I can see that in myself. Every time I pick up a new hobby or a new material, I just learn it. I mean, you know, we think that we don't learn as fast as we get older, but I really think it's the opposite. I think you're just able to make more sense out of things. So even if you've just started painting or just gotten back in touch with it, you know, just give yourself a little bit more credit and know that every time you pick up an art piece, art supply, anything, you are getting better and you are going to advance. And I'm amazed, like every week, how much
My fish is
progress
going
I'm seeing.
backwards.
It's just incredible. I am so proud and so grateful to have such wonderful students and being able to do this at this time. So everybody take care. Please send me pictures and any questions that you have. I would really especially love to see you just take this a little bit further, you know, fan out those fins and tail, get some of those scales and the gills, just get them a little bit more defined. You know, just take your time doing it without me, you know, interrupting every few seconds. So take care and I will see you next week. This was fun. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have fun at the dentist.
everyone.